Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'll be your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers. And joining me to talk about the 2024 NFL draft needs for the Super Bowl runner-ups, unfortunately, the San Francisco 49ers, and what they need, who they can draft, what positions they need to fill in just a few short weeks. Helping bring this up and to just break it down is a very talented writer who's been appearing on our platform here for the past couple of weeks, has been absolutely perfecting his craft, putting in the work, and has been breaking down a bunch of prospects with us. And now he gets to talk about the positional needs for the San Francisco 49ers. Mr. William Yanish, how you doing this afternoon, sir?
Oh man, I'm doing great.
All right, man, that's
Definitely.
good to hear. And we'll just go ahead and give it over to you, man. We'll give you the ball, and let's get things rolling. Who the 49ers
Well,
need to draft this upcoming 2024 draft season?
well, let me start out with this. I'm a lifelong San Francisco 49ers fan, so I might have some convictions about what I saw this last year.
Go
I
right
don't
ahead.
know. Last fall, as soon as they hired Steve Wilkes, I'm like, oh no, I'm like, this can't be happening. I'm like, this guy is not a good coach, secondary coach. He's not linebacker, defense, and anything. He's secondary, and they think about defense a whole different. I knew at the beginning of the season also, and I also said that the 49ers were going to be in the Super Bowl. I didn't say anything about winning, saying something like that. So the thing is, Steve Wilkes he made the defense look bad, and I mean Shanahan overriding his play calls in the Super Bowl, and then canning it was. I mean, I was yeah, that definitely happened. And he was handed the keys to a Lamborghini, and he was driving it like a beat up Chevy. I mean, trying blitzes and this and that and everything else. It's like, man, you rush. That's all you gotta do is rush for. And then they, traded for Chase Young, which Chase Young is very hardworking, to say the least. But coming back and playing with his old college teammate, Bosa and things like that, it was kind of a story. And well, kind of a story to the point that if he signs someplace else, they're likely to get third round compensatory pick, which is what they traded for him in the first place. So I mean, say goodbye to him. That would be all right. I like Randy Gregory, situational pass rusher. I mean, we've got some depth on the defensive end and defensive line, period. And to say the least, you start in the trenches and go out. And every San Francisco fan right now is talking about the offense. Well, the offensive line is something, these guys have got to work together, and they they've got to gel, and sometimes that takes some time. I mean, the offensive line isn't as bad as it's actually looking, but I mean that's always any, like I said, from the trenches on out is how you. And then, in the new passing league that it is, cornerback is usually cornerback, defensive back is the most selected position in draft. I mean, it's just come to that, and that's how it is. With them wanting to score points, make the game more exciting. Um, there's always that. We've had some injury issues, obviously, as Dave with Apanga, all that deal. So I mean, secondary is definitely also a need as well. But when it comes to drafting, especially with a team like this that has superstars on it, you don't draft for need. You pick the best player available. You pick the one that you want, you know, and that's how you stir up competition. That's how you make, the team better, period. And drafting for need is asking, in my opinion. I mean, we needed a kicker kind of, whatever. people gave, Jake Moody a hard time for, being a third round pick, and I didn't mind it. I was like, that's okay. I mean, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the first round, the last 3 years, we've drafted Trey Lance each year. And that's definitely bad. And I mean, ending up with Brock Purdy at quarterback. I mean, this team was just so close, to winning. There's not much more you can do to put it over the top besides get a good, young, hungry defensive coordinator. You know, someone, I mean, like how Staley was when he first came in. Uh, and I think that would be probably the greatest need of the offseason. Draft needs, yeah, obviously. Definitely could add some depth with on the offensive line, and with cornerbacks, there are a few different ones. I like Cooper DeJean, and I think he will actually be there. He's not going to go as high as everyone else is putting on, up at like one, two, something like that. He'll probably fall to the second. It's done, but I like him as a player. He was a little bit tentative. Run support, playing at Iowa, I mean, there's some bad dudes there, so it wasn't necessarily that he had to clean up every one of them. So, like I said, it made him a little. That's about the only problem with DeJean.
Hmm.
We are having to pay wide receivers, and Ayuk is definitely owed a contract, and that needs to happen. But in all hopes and dreams, I mean, I like Western Kentucky University wide receiver Malachi Corley at 31. I think that would be an excellent pick. And I mean, that's another one we were talking earlier about yards after the catch. And I mean, that's what this guy does. I mean, he's got a quarterback, Austin Reed, and that Austin Reed's arm strong very much, and but Corley is a game changer, and I think between him and I really think that all uh, teams need two really solid tight ends. I wouldn't mind Cade Stover. You know, might have to trade up in the second for him. I've got a first round grade on him though too. I've been watching a ton of games with him the last 2 years, and I'm thoroughly impressed. He is just all over the field. I mean, like I said, they call him Farm Gronk because he's from Ohio out there, and they should more probably call him Farm Kittle. I'm they're even maybe about a pound difference too. They're the same size, same guy. You know, a true Y tight end that can block, catch, do anything. Create mismatches. Just tear up the field. Cade Stover did that this year. CJ Stroud wasn't using it so much in 22 as he should have. I mean, you could tell that Stover was usually fourth or fifth read down, and that's the only time Stroud would really throw to him. And but this year it was a little bit different. It got to show a lot of who he was. They gave him opportunities. And like I said, so those are my two dream picks, either Corley or Dover in the first round. And as it goes on down there, I believe we have 11 picks this year. I mean, that gives you ammunition to be able to move around and get the players that you want, not just the ones might be there by the time you draft. And pull the old Belichick trick, just be swapping picks here and there, getting a bit, just shifting around and getting who you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how successful draft works. And there are a ton of good players in this draft coming up, and I'm just so glad that we don't need a quarterback anymore. I'm really looking forward to next year. I mean, I'm definitely faithful to the Bay, man. I mean, that's where I was as a kid, and gotta love my Niners.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think I stated my case for what I thought.
Yes, sir. You did a great job with that as well. You got on your team, man, in a respectful manner, of course, and just said, "All right, look, here's my professional opinion on what we need," and I'm gonna just harping off of that. I'm gonna kind of go off what you said, and looking at positions that the 49ers could fill some holes in is you look at one, and I think tight end only because yes, of course you got George Kittle. Other than that, I mean, it's kind of a who's who, unless you're a diehard like yourself. If you could get just some more looks, and look, I get they have a solid wide receiving core, of course, Debo, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, who had a really good postseason. But if you could add maybe another dynamic tight end, kind of like a George Kittle, maybe athletic, or even just maybe a blocker, or just another good hand in there, that would make the rest of your team click even more. You also said the offensive line needs a little bit of work as well, and I think that is probably their biggest key this offseason is just filling in those holes on the O line and continuing to pound the rock with McCaffrey and just really keep Brock Purdy upright. That's the key to the success. As long as you give Purdy some hole, or excuse me, as long as you give McCaffrey some holes to work with and give Purdy ample enough time to throw the ball wherever he needs to, that is a key. We always say that games are won and lost where? In the trenches. We already know San Francisco has a solid D line, of course, with Chase Young, Bosa and company, and I think that with the O line, that's your money makers. Those are the guys who do the grit work. They don't have any stats on them for the most part. It's hard to. You really got to watch the game film with those guys on the O line because it's hard to quantify how good they do or how well they perform in numbers. So I think you got to get some work there. Obviously, you mentioned some work the wide receiver department, maybe the cornerbacks and the other guys on defense. But obviously, we know that San Francisco is a solid team. Obviously, we know how well they did this past year. And, I mean, William, you saw right after the Super Bowl what happened. Who did they get rid of? I mean, and that was a shock to everyone. No one, I mean, no one really saw that coming. The fact that you get to the Super Bowl and then it felt like not even a week later they were getting rid of some of the guys, the coaching staff on defense. But I mean, sometimes you have to do crazy things and make big moves like that in order to really get to where you need to be. And unfortunately for San Francisco, they've had 2 trips to the Super Bowl within this past decade, these past 10 years, and they've fallen to the Kansas City Chiefs twice. So they know that they're right there. They are right at that hump. And you got to do something different if you want to get over it and ultimately bring the Lombardi Championship back home to William Yanish and the Bay Area. But guys, I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Who do you think the 49ers need to draft? Do you have any certain players you want them to go for? Any school you want them to really get some talent from? Or just positions in general? As always, give us a comment, Facebook and YouTube. Also go and like the page, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss, and also turn on notifications so you don't miss a single episode. Because we go live each and every single week, everyone. We do a lot of just really in-depth, talented draft analysis, getting you geared up. We're trying to get as many players as possible in for the draft. We've done a lot of really good quarterbacks. We're doing some defensive guys now, running backs, corners, you name it. We're covering all aspects of the game, all positions. And if you want to go check those out, once again, Facebook and YouTube, main places for that. And also go and download our podcast, which is available each and every single week on all of your major podcast streaming platforms that you prefer under the same title, 100 Yards of Football. For my guest host, Mr. William Yanish III, thank you so much for coming on, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure talking some San Francisco 49ers football, talking some NFL draft coverage as well with you today. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. Go and brush up on some game film, and we'll talk to you again on